Hey guys, welcome to the Chloe D and Matt C Something Different podcast, where we talk about life and faith and how they intersect. Let's get into it. So, Chloe, do you have a food that is like, you just love it?
Coffee.
You,
Yeah, coffee. I mean,
thank you for the boss lady.
yeah, yeah. You are a boss lady.
I know. So one of my, I really do like food,
Uh-huh.
but one of my favorites is grape juice.
Hmm.
And when Crystal and I were first married, we didn't have a whole lot of money,
Yeah.
and like a lot of couples do when they're first starting out. And as special treats, like Crystal would go to the store, and she would buy me Welch's grape juice in the bottle, not concentrate, but
Mhm.
in the bottle.
Okay.
And then she'd put it in the fridge, early in the morning, so that by the time I got home, it was really cold. And she'd turn the refrigerator down so it was even colder, and I'd get, a glass of grape juice for supper. But it always happened. Like, I'd be laying in bed, and all I could think about was, there's a bottle of Welch's in the refrigerator. So I would get up, and I wouldn't even get a glass out. I
Yeah.
would just open the jug, and I
And
would
just drink it.
drink as much of it as I could. And it was to the point where, like, I wouldn't even stop to take a breath. It's just like I was trying to just get as much grape juice in me as possible. And I'd come back to bed, and I'd be breathing hard and everything. And Chris was like, what's going on? So I just couldn't stop. It was so good. And I mean, it's kind of a silly story, but I think that a lot of people struggle with wanting something. And I mean, I guess the way you what you call that is addiction. But I don't know, like when you think about addiction or the effects of addiction, what are your thoughts? Let's just start there. What are your thoughts on addiction and the effects of it and how it affects an individual, how it affects people they love?
Yeah. I definitely think it's a psychological thing for sure.
Okay.
I do feel that way about addiction because I don't think everybody struggles with addiction.
Yeah, not everybody that buys Welch's grape juice is waking up in the middle of the night.
Yeah. But I'm like, to me, that's overindulging.
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
They're what's interesting is it felt good having it in the house.
yeah.
Like I was craving it when it was at Walmart, but when it was in the house, it felt good.
Yeah.
But then there was like another pleasure on top of that whenever I partook in, and still struggle. I still struggle with loving grape juice and food and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But so you think that addiction is partly psychological?
Yeah. I think there's something in the brain for some.
Yeah,
And addiction is a wide range because
yeah,
it's not just coffee or
yeah.
grape juice, it's drugs. And
It could
there's
be,
a long list of addictions that we could have.
and
Gluttony.
yeah. I think when we talk about addiction, we got to be real careful
Mm-hmm.
because we're talking about somebody's struggle,
Mm-hmm.
but that person was made in God's image.
For sure.
Like that's somebody that God loves,
Absolutely.
and something that someone that somebody else loves. Now, the addiction does something to them, though.
Yeah.
It takes over.
Yeah.
Like it starts out as a habit, but it becomes more than just a habit.
For sure.
It becomes like, I don't know, their life and identity.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, um, I, I'm I'm not addicted to drugs or alcohol, but I care about people that are,
Mm.
and I seek to try to understand where they're coming from. Just try to be able to empathize and such. Um, One interesting thing that I saw recently was it was talking about dopamine.
Okay.
So let's talk about your brain for a minute.
Yeah.
So just physiologically, um, if 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 the normal person's baseline dopamine is 100,
Mm.
right? So like this is just 100, then like eating it's like 160.
Yeah.
So it feels good.
Mhm.
And I mean, there's reasons that God created us that way, right? Like, we need to make sure we put fuel in the tank. We need to make sure that we're taking care of our body and that it has enough
Yeah.
energy. So he gave us that desire.
Mhm.
Sex is like 200%,
Mhm.
which is the high one of, if not the highest, dopamine release
Mm.
most humans experience. Which God said, "Be fruitful and multiply." So,
Yes.
so procreation feels good.
Yes. Yeah. Things that feel good.
Yeah, yeah. So it's that dopamine. But like when we start talking about drugs, like cocaine
Mhm.
is like 400%. So baseline's 100. Cocaine feels twice as good as sex, 4 times as good as just normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we start talking about things like meth and methamphetamines are 1,300.
Okay.
I want to say 13,000, but that's not right. It's 1,300.
Okay.
So it's 13 times normal.
Mhm.
And so, like, when I think about that,
Mhm.
that makes my heart hurt for those people that are struggling with that. And again, some people use that stuff and they're not addicted,
Yeah. Yeah.
but some people use it once and they are just,
They're hooked on it.
they're hooked and
Yeah.
they can't let it go. And so I just wanted to have a conversation about addiction
Mhm.
and about um, the effects of addiction, and how, like, I think that probably everybody listening to the podcast, including ourselves,
Mhm.
are personally affected by someone who's
For
addicted,
for sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
and specifically affected by drugs and alcohol.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, it's the one will take over that can take over somebody.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
it totally robs
it's
them.
bigger.
It's
You
bigger.
just showed us with numbers that it's
Yeah,
a bigger effect.
it's a bigger effect. And so when you see someone who's addicted to methamphetamines and they're really, really skinny,
Mhm.
it's more enjoyable than food.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's more enjoyable than anything that we naturally experience as
Uh-huh.
humans.
Yeah. And it is sad.
It
It
is,
is
but
sad that
it gives me the logic behind it, I
yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, an understanding that
yeah, and so like not dismissing it, not excusing it,
yeah. Yeah.
but to me it begins the road to understanding.
Mhm.
Because when I can understand or empathize with somebody, put myself in their shoes
Mhm.
for just a moment, it makes me, when they start making steps toward recovery,
Mhm.
it makes me that more eager
Mhm. When they're getting better.
when you see them wanting to get better because they have the desire to.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because while at the beginning, methamphetamines gives you 1,300 times more dopamine, um, in long-term use, when they're not using,
Mhm.
that baseline dopamine level was 100.
Yeah.
Their baseline dopamine level is like 40. So they feel terrible.
Mhm.
They just
Yeah.
don't feel good.
Yeah.
And if you could take a pill or smoke something and feel normal and you had the flu,
Mhm.
like that for me, like that's the
Yeah.
way I have to think about it. It's like if I had the flu and I could take a pill and I would feel
Better.
normal.
Uh-huh. That's fair. I like that. Never thought about it like that.
And so, like, just like the stuff that they chose that path
Mhm.
for the most part.
Yeah. I think it kind of is a blind path.
It is. It is. They either peer pressure or they were
Mhm.
curious or
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that path was the path they took. And so when they decide to change paths, that's such a critical moment. It's
Yeah.
really a narrow window.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've had somebody come by the church building and say, "Matt, I want to get better." And okay, and so I'm calling around trying to get rehabs to take them.
Yes.
Literally, like, "Hey, do you have a bed? Hey, do you have a bed? Hey, do you have a bed?" and it took a couple of hours, and they said, "Hey, I'm going to go to Allsup's and get a bag of chips."
And then
And then
you lost
I
them.
did I lost
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
They in that story, the good part is I did lose them for a time, or I didn't lose them, but you know what I'm saying.
They veered off.
Yeah, they veered off, and had to experience some more of that pain,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then they came back,
Yes.
and are doing well. Are
Yeah.
doing well. But that's not every story.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's not. And it is hard to watch. It does affect those around you.
Yeah.
Um, I've struggled with personal addictions,
Mm.
have an addictive personality, because I
Okay.
do kind of think that addictions does play into some personalities.
Oh yeah.
I think some like more than others. I think some people like thrill, because I'm like, you've got thrill seeking.
Yeah. Some people
That
are adrenaline junkies, right?
yes,
That's what we call them.
yes, yeah. So I'm like that. It's a wide range. It is harder when it is drugs and alcohol, um, because those seem to be the ones that are most self-destructive and can almost take over your brain.
I think it's because those are not like. Have you ever not had your phone on you and you thought you felt it?
Yeah.
I think that's part of
Yes.
like
That tap.
addiction.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the phantom
Yes.
vibrations. You're like,
Yes.
oh, I got a notification. No, I
Yeah.
didn't.
No,
I
you
don't
didn't.
have my phone.
Yeah. Yeah. But that is true
But
though.
it's like that's such a part of my life that I'm
Yeah.
having phantom
Yes.
notifications. And then we start talking about um like video games. Like
Yeah.
this is the truth. I don't have any video games on my phone
Okay. Okay.
because I have a very addictive
Okay.
personality,
Okay.
and um like I did have a video game at one time, which was just like the little line writer game,
Yeah.
and it's like I was playing it so
All the
bad.
time.
It took over. Like I would stay
Yeah.
up late at night, and I would wake up so that I could play
Your game.
a game. And
Yeah.
it's so like,
Yeah.
but I do think the reason that uh, chemical addictions and alcoholism are so dangerous is because it gives us a dopamine release that is so much higher than what is natural.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it has a stronger hook.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
does that make sense?
Yes.
And so I think like because everybody struggles with something. I'm convicted and convinced that everybody struggles with something. Some people like I do have an addictive personality, but so like I struggle with overeating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like so I went to the doctor and got blood work done, and he said my triglyceride levels were so high that I was like a heart attack is not outside the possibility in the next 5 years.
Okay.
So like, and that runs in my family.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's something that physiologically is probably something with my genetics. But so he said you got to stop eating sweets. I love sweets. You got to exercise more. Really don't love exercise. He gave me this list of things to do. And like you'd think that I would change my lifestyle,
Mm-hmm. But it's hard.
but it's difficult. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's like as silly as minor as food and exercise is.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for me, even though I have the paperwork
Yeah.
that says you need to change this about your life. It's hard for me
Mm-hmm.
too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I mean, I guess to empathize with them some, but everybody struggles with something. Like,
Well, that's
go ahead.
that I do think that does give you some empathy towards. My mom has said that always, because my mom also feels the same way about food. Like she loves food,
Hmm.
and she's always very understanding of addictions, because she's like, well, even though it's food, it's something that I have a hard time letting go of. And I could understand, you can understand somebody else's bigger problem, their bigger addiction, and not bigger problem.
It's I may not struggle with the same sin you struggle
Yes.
with, but I struggle with sin.
Yes.
And that's a Bible way to say that.
It is. And it's
But
right. It's
I
right.
think it's accurate even no matter what we're talking about. That I may not struggle with what you struggle with,
Yeah.
but I struggle, and so I can appreciate someone struggling.
Yeah. Yeah.
That it's not all just fine.
Yeah. Because it's not.
It's
Well,
not. I think a lot of times we say that it is,
but it's not.
but it's not. So how do we help ourselves? How do we help others overcome that?
Yeah.
What are some solutions that you've seen or that you've heard?
Yeah, I was like, and I actually I went to counseling for addiction,
Okay.
and
How's that?
how is that?
How is that?
How is
Tell me
counseling of it?
tell me
Well,
more about that.
okay. I'm like,
No.
I I did. This is like an unpopular addiction, but I went to counseling for a sex addiction.
Okay.
Um, and the psychology behind that, the reasoning behind it, was pretty interesting for me to the point where I feel like it's been something I've been able to maintain now just with the coping skills that I learned from counseling cuz you know you can go to rehab for different things.
Absolutely.
I think there's probably a rehab for food too.
Probably so.
You know. But it is kind of you have to definitely want to get the help for it.
Yes.
And that is very hard because I don't think I don't think that what I had going had a hold over me. I was like, I guess I don't. I'm like, I've had more than one addiction. Like I've had more than one thing that I've struggled with, but self-awareness is the only reason I've gotten out of it.
Okay.
I've never been interested in like hard drugs.
Yeah.
Alcohol and weed has
Yeah.
been a little bit more open to me, if that makes
It
sense.
does.
But I've never really been interested in cocaine or meth or I those have just never. I guess I know that I struggle with it, so it's not a door I wanted to open.
So you're afraid of it.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yes. Because well, I'm more afraid that I'd like it,
Yeah.
truthfully.
Yes.
Like, I'm more scared that if I did do this one thing, it's always just one more time, just one more time. And I've done that same thing with my own personal addictions.
Yeah.
So those, they can kind of take over you,
Mm.
and it gets a little harder. So it's like I've never wanted to open the door to allow that. Um, the counseling behind it was very interesting just because why am I doing this?
Yeah.
By why?
Yeah.
Why am I so why does this have a hold on me? Why am I interested in this? Why up here? Why what got me here? And I do think it is the devil.
Yeah.
That does come from the devil.
Yeah.
He wants us to struggle.
For sure.
He wants us to have a hard time. But I think that or I don't think people can get away unless they want to get away.
Yeah, you have to have that desire to change.
Mm-hmm.
I think that so when I talk to folks who are ready or it, I don't know that anybody's ready
Yeah.
to begin recovery, but they want recovery.
Yeah.
There's like three things that I talk about. Um, you got to be brutally honest
Mm-hmm.
because so often we tell half truths and bold-faced lies
Yeah.
to maintain some sort of image.
For sure.
And so you got to be brutally honest
Mm-hmm.
that you have to surrender the outcome because we do try to image manage
Mm-hmm.
and try to manipulate a situation so that it works for our benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got to be brutally honest. We got to surrender the outcome. And the last thing we have to do is think how to say this. We got to you got to want it,
Mm-hmm.
but it's you got to pursue it.
Yeah.
And you gotta be
Well, it's
open yourself up to that change.
yeah, and I do think in a sense it does become not a job, but a job towards. You're working towards a goal,
Yeah,
and it takes
yeah.
a lot of effort.
That I guess that's a good way to say it. So we got to be brutally honest. We got to um, how did I say it? Brutally honest. Um, you got to stop image management. You got to surrender the outcome, and you got to do hard work.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like it's going to be hard work.
Yes.
So you got to have that desire. I also think that it's important who you surround yourself with.
Absolutely.
That if you're surrounding yourself with people who were in your story when you were in that addiction, or then it's going to be harder,
Yeah.
not impossible, but it's going to be more difficult to recover.
For sure.
That I got a friend. He says, if you show me your friends, I'll tell you your future.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like the people you hang out with are so influential and so important in what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I want to be more successful, I should hang out with
Successful people. Mm-hmm. We talked about that in marriage.
Yeah.
My client before.
Yeah.
We were talking about that it's like in my marriage, I want people who view marriage the same way.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
you've got your single friends that are still in a different place, but I'm like, you can hang out with your single friends as long as they're supportive of marriage as a whole.
Yeah.
Because marriage is it's very important. It's very sacred.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
It's a special how it's a it's like a covenant.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And sacred, like you said.
It's the most special.
And so are we doing things that will encourage that union?
Yeah.
Are we doing things that will discourage it? Personally, collectively, like if I'm hanging out with a bunch of guys and they're talking bad about their wives.
Yeah.
Like that's
well, then I'm gonna be talking bad about you too.
Well, yeah.
Well, I mean, not really, but I'm saying like it can influence.
It can, and like it's like making a choice, right? Like you got to make a choice. But again, everybody struggles with something.
For sure.
Like it's not just food or sex.
No, it's like even money.
Video games. But yeah, money,
There's
possessions. Like, and so what are maybe this is the question is like, what are people trying to do when they
are aware
when they're finding things that they're addicted to? Like I wonder if they're trying to find joy.
I think so. I do.
Like they find a bit of happiness.
Yeah.
Because happiness goes away after a while.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure.
And so, like
you just want your fix.
You want your fix, but I wonder if it comes from a deep desire to find joy.
Yeah, because I think sometimes our family, like our upbringings, like our family dynamic, can be very depressing for some.
It can be sad. Like there's a lot of family stories that are hard, difficult.
I do think it can.
And there's a lot of life situations that are difficult. I mean, they just are, and some people are just craving joy. So much that they're willing to seek it in. Maybe they don't understand fully what it is they're going after, but they're like their friend says, this made me feel good, you should try it.
Yeah. And I do think that drugs probably give people, I've never done it. It gives you a complex.
It gives you a euphoria, according to the science. It gives you a euphoria that depletes every time you use it.
Yeah.
And so by the time that someone is considered what we would call an addict.
Yeah.
That they're just taking drugs to try to feel normal. They don't have euphoria anymore.
Yes.
But
they need that. They need that back.
They need that. Like they wake up in the morning craving drugs so that they can not be euphoric, but so that they can be normal. It's different than my craving for the grape juice in the fridge.
Absolutely. But it has a bigger hold.
Yeah.
It's. I think sometimes it's like it's no longer. And this is my understanding of it. I also wanted to specialize in addictions.
Really?
And this is weird. This is a very unpopular one.
Okay.
But um, pedophiles. I don't think that's a normal thought process.
Yeah.
And this is not most. This is a very unpopular opinion, but I empathize with them
Okay.
for the simple fact that I don't think your brain is normal.
Yeah.
I don't think that wanting to be with a child is a normal thought. It's not in my brain.
Yeah.
I don't think that way in my brain.
Yeah.
But what's going on in your brain?
Yeah. What's happening in it? Yeah, in the synapse and all that.
What's going
stuff.
on with you to make you feel that that's
Yeah,
okay?
have that
Because it's not
desire.
okay.
Okay.
It's not.
Yeah.
But I kind of,
That is interesting.
it is. And it's very unpopular. Like, not many people would agree with me on that. But I'm also like, but we forgive this. Why can't, and I do think some
Now,
people.
I do think that we take certain things more serious than others.
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
That's a very serious one.
it is a
That
very
is a very
it is a very serious one. But like even when we talk about alcoholism,
Mm-hmm.
as long as you keep it in your house,
Yeah.
most people don't care.
Yeah.
Once you get in a car and you're drunk,
Yeah.
people care.
Yeah. And that's true.
But that person's hurting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For sure.
Because one of the things that addiction does is eventually it makes that person very lonely.
Mm-hmm.
And so the only thing they have left is the addiction.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And but what about the person who is addicted to gossip?
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's a person
Because
too.
that's a person too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we're like, oh, that's not a bad sin. But this is a bad sin.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
Well, it's
and I'm just like,
classifications.
it's classifications, and I understand that like different things have different consequences.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like all people hurt.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how do we help people heal?
Yeah.
And so I got a couple of verses that I was thinking of just as we're talking. So one of them is because people I think are chasing after joy.
Mm-hmm.
In Philippians it says rejoice in the Lord always, and I'll say it again, rejoice.
Yeah.
And so I think the place that we can find joy is in Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not just cliche.
It's
Like
not.
it's
It's not
not
at all.
just like I truly believe that.
It's truth.
I think that sometimes we settle for a less than Jesus. Like we offer people less than Jesus somehow.
Yeah.
Like we say, if you just believe this doctrine, if you just do these things, if you just
Mm-hmm.
then you'll have joy. But Jesus genuinely gives joy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I do think that sometimes making change is uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable.
It's very uncomfortable. I mean,
Yeah.
just talk to anybody that quit. You know, what
Yeah.
was it like a week ago?
Yeah.
Like National Quitters Day is like the second Saturday.
Yeah.
And so.
But it's like for me, it's like I get that. Like I get not wanting to face those demons. I understand not wanting to address this issue over here because if I address this over here, then I'm going to have to do more work. And that may be sad. That may be a sad thing to have to address those issues.
What's really crazy to me is that the way God will redeem that part of people's life.
Yeah.
So like I got a friend who's an opioid addict in recovery and has been for 13 years. And the way that God uses him to reach out to other people who are addicted, that I would never be able to say like I know that struggle.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't say that.
No.
But he can.
Well, he's lived it.
He's lived it, and so he's got like street cred.
No, and I love what he's doing.
Yeah.
It's just awesome. It's great. But it's almost like he replaced it with something good. He replaced it with.
I think that's another thing is like we can say don't think about this, don't think about this, don't think about this, don't think about this, but when we say don't think about it, only thing we're thinking about
is it. Yeah.
Is the thing we're not supposed to think about.
Yeah.
But instead, it's choosing to think about something else, and that's what he's done.
Yeah.
Is he's chosen
Well, you took it in.
to be addicted to Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
like maybe that's the way to say that.
I mean, I do think that most addicts do replace one with another.
Yeah.
In a way, in a sense.
I think everybody that gets better does.
Mm-hmm.
That we have that craving for whatever it is inside of us. And so what do we choose to focus on rather than that craving?
Yeah.
Instead of just like that's our default setting,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And so how do we have a different
I
setting?
always encourage positive.
Yeah.
I always say find something positive.
Yeah.
Because in my chair, I do a lot of I'm not a counselor, but I do so much counseling. And I know a lot of people that don't have good support or positive influences, and I understand church is intimidating for some people.
Yeah.
It is. It is.
It is. It should be the place that people run to. But because of past hurt,
Because of
because
people.
of some stigma,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's fair or not,
Yeah.
that's not the place that people generally run to.
No. No.
And so, like for me, it's like, how do we equip people who are Christians to help people?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like if they're sitting in your chair, or if they're at the mechanic, or
Mm-hmm.
that is a Christian,
Mm-hmm.
and or if they're in the coach's classroom,
Yeah.
that is a Christian.
Yeah.
Like, how do they spread light and Jesus where they are, and be the church?
Yeah.
Because sometimes people won't instinctively run to the church. The
Mm-hmm.
church has to
Well, the church,
go where they are.
yeah, you kind of do. And I always tell people when they talk to me about church, and they're like, "Well, church this," and I'm like, "That wasn't the church. That was the people."
Yeah.
And the people are not perfect.
Yeah.
There's not a single perfect person in this world.
Yeah.
There's not.
If you find the
It
perfect
doesn't
church,
exist.
don't join because you ruin it.
Yeah, it's not perfect. It's messy. So it's just like, to me, I'm like, you've got to give those same people in the church that you're judging, you've got to give them grace because they're hypocrites too.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't feel that way about everybody. I don't feel that everybody is a hypocrite in the church.
I think we all struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And as fellow strugglers,
yeah,
we're in different parts in our path.
for sure. For sure.
And some of us are still trying to put up a facade that we're all good. And some of us are at a place where we're a mess, but we got Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
I'm openly myself with you.
yeah, absolutely.
I can be, well, but I think people relate. They relate to that because if they don't feel judgment, if they feel less judged, they feel more open.
But that's a different way to think. You know what I mean? Like, it's scary to be authentic.
I don't feel that way.
Because I feel that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's scary for me, I should say that, to be authentic, because what if you don't like me?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, like, instead of rejecting whatever persona I've projected, you're really rejecting.
Yeah.
You're really rejecting.
Well, it becomes personal. And I do understand with your line of work. I do understand that is a little harder because, and I hate this. I don't think this is right, but people should not put you on a pedestal.
No.
But
no.
they do.
But they do.
But they do. And it's unfortunate because that's not fair.
It's in the same way we shouldn't put other people below us, though.
For sure. Absolutely.
Like whether we're talking about, I mean, with the talk today, we shouldn't put addicts below us.
No, because they're not. They're humans.
Not. They're created in God's image. They truly are. Every person is created is an image bearer of God.
Yeah.
There's no other thing in creation that God said, let's
Absolutely.
make this after our image.
Yeah.
That's humans.
Yeah.
And so one of the beautiful things is the diversity that we have. And so when we bump in, meet somebody, we get to see the good parts. We get to see a reflection of God.
Yeah.
And you know, like somebody's really encouraging, man, that's a great reflection of God.
Yeah.
Somebody's really funny.
Yeah.
That's a good reflection of God. You
Yeah.
know, like the
Yeah.
good parts of them.
Yeah. Well,
And
because
you
there's
start
good
thinking,
in
there's
everybody.
good in everybody. Like God truly has imprinted His image on all of us, and the good parts of us, I think those are the parts that are the image of God, and the bad parts are the parts that like the devil's twisted
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
messed up.
For sure.
And that's in all of us too.
Yes. Well, because if we want to allow him to, we can.
Yeah.
If we want
It's
to allow God to, we can.
Crystal's pawpaw used to say it like, and I know it's an old saying, but you can lead a horse to water, but you
Mhm.
can't make him drink.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
and I mean that's true in all areas. I have to be willing to change.
Mhm.
I can't. You can't make me.
Mm-mm.
You
No.
know, like
No,
but
but you can't. It's
you
not going to
can't
be
like
good for either one of us.
no. It's like whenever so Crystal's dad raised goats for a long time,
Mhm.
and so uh one year it was time to catch the goat. Crystal has two twin brothers, and they were 8 when we were married, when
Mm.
Crystal and I were married, and so they're like 10 years younger than us, and so it's time to go catch the goats. Here's these two like excited young
Mhm.
boys, and they're like, "All right, we're getting our goat catching clothes on." They go in, they put on what is that, coveralls where you zip it
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
So they put on coveralls. It's the middle of summer, but they put on coveralls because they know we're about to tumble.
Yeah.
And we go out there and we're catching goats and we're getting them loaded, and there's always one, and they knew it. And sure enough, there was one, and like they jumped and dove and jumped and dove, and finally we got him pinned.
Mhm.
And we're dragging this goat. I mean, God gave him handles because he
Mhm.
has horns.
Yeah.
So, like, of course, you know, I'm bigger than they are. So I'm like, I got this goat by the
Yeah.
horn and I'm dragging him to the trailer. And it's like, this is going to be so, like, we can go take him to get some good food. But he doesn't
He
want to.
didn't
He
want
doesn't, you
to.
can't,
Yeah.
like, and he's got
Couldn't
his
make it.
toes spread out and we're dragging him through the sand. He doesn't want to go. He doesn't want to go so bad. I broke his horn.
Oh no.
So then we got another problem. So then
Yeah.
we hold him down. We got to cauterize that wound because it's like bleeding everywhere. And so then we, you know, pick him up. Don't grab him by the horns. Pick him up and load him
Uh-huh.
in the trailer. But so often in my life, I've been like that goat.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
people are
Just
trying to
not
get me
wanting
to
to.
a good place,
Mhm.
trying to help me get to a good place, and I just don't want it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in resisting, I hurt myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And anyway, it's kind of a silly story, but it's like,
Well, no, I mean, that's true though. I mean, that's in a lot of areas of life that you don't want to. And it is kind of sad that we don't just our human nature sometimes keeps us from doing what's better for us.
yeah,
Um,
I think that like you said, positive thinking
mhm.
is powerful,
It is. It is.
and so eh, letting our minds dwell on good things.
Mhm.
So, like in the same chapter that rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice is in. In Philippians 4, it also says whatever's true, noble, right, honorable, excellent. Think about this stuff.
Mhm.
And so, like letting our minds dwell not on the deception, but on the reality and
Mhm.
truth and the good.
Yeah.
And I think also seeing good in people and
Mhm.
saying it.
Yeah,
Like
for sure.
like saying, man, you know, this sounds kind of funny, but like seeing somebody that does a kind deed, and instead
Mhm.
of just appreciating that from afar, going, I really appreciate you doing
Yeah.
whatever that was.
Yeah. Well, giving acknowledgement.
Yes, and that just builds them up and
It
builds you
does.
up
It does.
because you're instead of choosing to focus on how terrible the driving is at Walmart,
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
focusing on the guy who put the cart back
Mhm.
in the buggy stall.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden your mind's just you're in the same
Well, you've
place.
shifted.
You've shifted your mind on what you're focused on.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I personally try to do that with people. Like I personally try to give grace because I'm like, well, what was this like?
Yeah,
What you just never know what somebody's struggling with.
yeah.
You never know.
Well,
Because
yeah.
it's not written on your forehead.
No, and even those that have things like you can tell when you walk up to them, there's another struggle probably.
Yeah, and
Like
it's
there's a reason they're in the place they are, and you
mm-hmm,
may not know it. You might not understand it, but to understand that everybody's struggling somehow,
mm-hmm, yeah,
it allows you everybody's struggling, so it allows you to give grace and allows you to receive grace.
for sure.
Because I think that's another thing is a lot of times I want to act like I don't struggle, and so I'm blocking people from being gracious to me
Okay,
because I don't have anything wrong with me.
I get what you're because I kind of feel that way about my dad.
Yeah,
What do you really struggle with? You know, like
yeah,
it is obvious on some and it's not obvious on others. And I do think having God in your life does make you I'm not it doesn't make you better, but it does make you stronger.
okay, yeah,
You know what I mean? Like you've got somebody working with you.
yeah,
And we're all better together than we are alone.
absolutely. I think that in most instances, for people who have God, they have people who also love God, and so they have people encouraging them in the direction of Jesus,
Mhm.
and that it doesn't make us good,
Mm-mm. Nope.
but it makes us better than we were.
Yes.
I don't I know I don't know how to say that accurate,
I think
but I
that's
think you get what I'm saying.
yeah, I was like I feel like that's right. It just well, and it does. It sets you apart,
You're
but
different. You're
in a
different,
better
and you're
yeah.
different, and you love differently. You see people differently.
Mhm.
It really is. I believe um, that living like Jesus showed us is the way that humanity was intended to live toward one another.
Mhm.
But that's so different
Mhm.
than what we see around us
Yeah.
a lot of times. We see people that are taking advantage of people. We see people
Mhm.
that are trying to get what's theirs. We see people that are judging other people.
Mhm.
And we see all of this. And in the middle of all of that, Jesus says, love your enemies.
Mhm.
Pray for those who persecute you.
Mhm.
Love one another.
Yeah.
Forgive one another. Like he teaches us how to live differently in the middle of all of that. And in the midst of all of that are people struggling with all kinds of addictions.
Mhm.
And we have to choose, we do have to choose how we're going to view them, how we're going to view us,
Mhm.
and how that's going to affect our day.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because when I don't choose that, I have a pretty negative outlook.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just do.
It's just nature.
It is,
It's
because
our
there's a lot
human.
of bad stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
And I'm like, we're all, you know, we've talked about this. We all have different gifts. So some gifts are different than others. And,
yeah, and we all need each other. I think
mhm.
that is. I think the older I get, and I'm not old, but the older I get, the more I realize how important community is. Like you need you need a band of brothers.
You do.
Like a
You
group
do.
of
You
people
do.
that are they're your people. And I'm
Mhm.
not saying that all people are your people, but you need like three or four people
Yeah.
I mean, it's your posse.
Yeah.
And that's
Yes.
and are those people trying to help you in the direction of Jesus?
Yeah.
Because I think if they are trying to help you in the direction of Jesus, that group of people, they're gonna like that is something that it's it's essential who we surround ourselves with
Mhm.
and that
Has
we
to be.
surround ourselves with people.
Yeah.
Because I think when we get off by ourselves, we start listening to that negative self-talk
Mhm. Mhm.
that
Or
says,
if you've got the negative friend.
or you've got a negative friend and then they're feeding that bucket,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
You're just adding right into it. And it's
Yeah, oh yeah. Like, I don't know, you're not enough or you're ugly or you're whatever,
yeah. Yeah.
or maybe even they're ugly,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
like not good.
Yeah.
And so I know I keep coming back to that idea of community, but I do think that is so important in in our walk in this life.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, who's your friends?
Yeah.
And I mean, like, your friends.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about just all the people that you're acquainted
Yeah.
with, but like, who's the 4 friends that, like, in the middle of the night, you could pick up the phone and you could call and you could say, this is going on.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd answer and they'd listen.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and not everybody has that, and I do think that some people that don't, they do,
They need it.
they struggle more with it.
I think so.
But they do need it.
I
They
think
do.
that crave it. I think that is something that we as humans crave is deep community.
Mm-hmm. And it would be cool if those people had more, like if they had, I mean, but you have to want better to do better.
You have to
want
desire it, and you have to be honest about it, like that. So in the meeting that I go to on Fridays, that I help lead, I love that we say, "Hey, my name's Matt, and I struggle with compulsive eating."
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, because
this is who I am.
Yeah.
And this is the thing I struggle with. I'm just going to come out and say it. Someone else says, well, this is my name and I'm an alcoholic, and this is my name and I'm a drug addict.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we're just, boom, there it is.
Mm-hmm.
And we care about each other and we hold each other accountable,
Mm-hmm.
and we're all striving to grow closer to Jesus.
Yeah.
And there's not judgment.
No.
For the person that comes in and they've messed up and they're, struggling,
Mm-hmm.
but trying.
Yeah. Yeah. As long as you're trying.
Yeah.
It's all that matters.
Struggling.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I'm like struggle with you.
let's it's not going to be easy.
No.
It's going to be hard work, but let's move in that direction.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.